All right, get ready to rock because we're diving deep into the world of Queen. We're talking about their masterpiece, A Night at the Opera, and of course that epic track, Bohemian Rhapsody, a song, by the way, that almost never made it out of the studio.
It's an amazing story, isn't it? We've got interviews with people who knew Freddie, biographies, behind-the-scenes stories, the whole 9 yards.
Let's start with Freddie himself, shall we? Talk about a journey. From Farrokh Bulsara, born in Zanzibar and raised in India, to becoming Freddie Mercury, the rock icon who took the world by storm.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even as a kid, his passion for music was off the charts. He formed his first band in boarding school, and when his family moved to England, he landed right in the middle of that exploding London art scene.
It's like he was meant to be there.
Right. And it's in London where he first saw Jimi Hendrix perform live. You can just imagine the impact that had on him, seeing that raw energy and stage presence. It's like the blueprint for what Queen would become.
Let's talk about a turning point. That's also where Freddie met Brian May and Roger Taylor. They had this band called Smile, and when their bassist left, Freddie saw his chance.
He was like, move over, guys. I'm taking this band to the next level. He just knew he had something special to bring to the table, and they saw it too.
And that's how Smile became Queen, the name Freddie chose himself. Bold, right?
Oh, totally bold. And speaking of bold, their album, A Night at the Opera, was a huge AGE risk. They actually broke their production deal to make it happen. The budget. Astronomical.
Yeah, it was unheard of at the time. They were determined to make something truly extraordinary, even if it meant putting everything on the line.
And you know what? It paid off. A Night at the Opera was a game changer for Queen, a smash hit. It put them on the map in a whole new way.
And at the heart of that album, of course, is Bohemian Rhapsody, Freddie's baby. But, get this, record execs almost killed it. They thought it was way too long for radio, too experimental, just destined to flop.
It's funny to think about that now, isn't it? Bohemian Rhapsody was a revolution. Freddie threw out the rule book on songwriting. 6 minutes long, no chorus, and it blew everyone away.
6 minutes, no chorus, over 60 chords. Mind-blowing.
It was like he took rock, opera, pop, mixed it all up, and created something completely unique, and no one, and I mean no one, had heard anything like it before.
But then this London DJ, Kenny Everett, gets a hold of it.
Oh yeah, Kenny Everett. He was a huge Queen fan, and he just went nuts for Bohemian Rhapsody. He played it over and over on his show, even before it was officially released.
Can you imagine hearing that for the first time? People were going crazy for it. Talk about building buzz.
It spread like wildfire. Everyone was talking about it, wanting to hear more. The power of radio, right?
Absolutely. And it wasn't just radio play. The music press, which was huge EE back then, also got behind it. They recognized Freddie's genius, how he was pushing the boundaries of rock music.
It was a perfect storm. And then, of course, there's the music video. It seems pretty basic now, but back then it was revolutionary.
Yeah. One of the first real concept music videos. MTV was just starting out, and this video captured the song's energy, the theatricality, the sheer rock and roll spirit of Queen.
They were visionaries. They understood how important visuals were, how to create a whole experience. It was a game changer.
And it helped solidify their status as icons. Speaking of which, Bohemian Rhapsody topped the charts for, well, what felt like forever.
It was a global phenomenon. Queen mania was everywhere. But, you know, their relationship with the press, especially in the UK, was kind of complicated.
Really?
Some critics just didn't get it. They thought Queen was too flamboyant, too theatrical, too over the top. They were ahead of their time, and not everyone could handle it.
Now, that's something we need to unpack. Plus, there's so much more to explore about Freddie's personal life, those early years, and how Queen dealt with fame.
Oh, for sure. It's a wild ride. Get ready for the next chapter.
You know, it's interesting how differently Queen was received around the world. Like in Japan and South America, they were huge EE. Yeah, they were practically royalty. But back home in the UK, the press could be pretty rough on them.
Yeah, they really could. I think some critics just couldn't handle how Queen was blending all these different styles, like hard rock and glam and pop and even opera.
And then you had Freddie with those incredible costumes and that larger-than-life persona. It was a lot to take in.
It really was. They were pioneers in a way. And for some people, it was just too much, too different, too edgy.
Freddie took it hard, didn't he?
He really did. He put so much of himself into his music, and when critics focused on the spectacle instead of the substance, it really hurt him. He even stopped giving interviews for a while because he felt so misunderstood.
I can understand why.
Yeah,
But hey, Queen didn't let that stop them. They just kept making incredible music, hit after hit.
that's right. A Day at the Races, the album that came after A Night at the Opera, was basically its musical twin.
Even the album titles are a nod to those classic Marx Brothers films.
Exactly. They had such a great sense of humor, but they were also incredibly serious about their music.
That album gave us somebody to love. I mean, talk about a vocal performance. Freddie's range is just unbelievable on that track.
It's pure Queen at their best. And then came News of the World. That album shook things up.
Oh, man. We are the champions and we will rock you. Those songs are anthems.
They've become part of our culture, haven't they? You hear them at sporting events, graduations, celebrations, everywhere.
They're like the ultimate songs of victory and unity. Queen really had a knack for writing music that transcended the moment.
They did. But with News of the World, we also see a shift in their relationship with the U.S. market.
Right, because America loved Queen, but some critics over there thought they were a bit too theatrical.
There was definitely some pushback, and then things got even more interesting with their 1980 album, The Game. Remember, Another One Bites the Dust?
Oh, yeah. That song was a huge hit, but it also caused a bit of a stir, right?
Yeah, because it was pure disco. A big departure from their usual rock sound.
It exploded in the U.S.
Yeah.
Became their biggest selling single ever.
It did. But some of their diehard rock fans felt like they'd sold out.
Yeah. They accused Queen of going too pop, abandoning their roots.
I think it just shows how those genre lines were so heavily guarded back then. But for Freddie, it was about creative freedom. He was a restless spirit, always wanting to explore new sounds.
He proved he could do it all, and that experimentation continued right.
Oh, absolutely. Hot Space, The Works, they brought in elements of funk, pop, even some new wave influences.
Those albums might not have been as commercially successful as their earlier work, but they show how Queen refused to be put in a box.
They took risks, followed their instincts, even if it meant alienating some of their old fans.
That takes guts, to stick to your vision even when people are telling you you're doing it wrong. It's around this time, too, that Freddie starts spending a lot of time in New York and Munich.
Yeah, he was really immersed in the gay club scene, living life fast and free. But remember, this was the early 80s, the beginning of the AIDS crisis.
And that lifestyle put him at risk.
It did. And although he kept his illness private for a long time, there were signs that his health was starting to deteriorate.
It's heartbreaking to think about what he was going through privately while still delivering these electrifying performances on stage. Queen's live shows were legendary. The energy, the theatricality, the connection with the audience.
Freddie was a true showman, in the best sense of the word. Even as he was getting sicker, he never let it show on stage. A true professional, always gave his all to the fans.
And then in 1985, there's Live Aid.
Oh, Live Aid, a defining moment for Queen. They absolutely stole the show that day.
That 20-minute set is considered one of the greatest live performances of all time. The energy was electric. Freddie was radiant.
It's hard to believe he was already quite ill at that point. He gave it everything he had. It was pure magic.
And Live Aid really breathed new life into their career, introduced them to a whole new generation of fans. It was like a rebirth.
It was, and they just kept going. In 1986, they released A Kind of Magic, inspired by the film Highlander, another global hit.
A Kind of Magic showed off their range as songwriters, didn't it?
Absolutely. From hard rock anthems like One Vision to more introspective songs like Who Wants to Live Forever. They could do it all.
And it was around this time that Freddie really started exploring his love of opera.
Right. His collaboration with the amazing soprano Montserrat Caballé was just incredible.
It resulted in the album Barcelona, this beautiful blend of pop and opera, a real passion project for Freddie.
It showed another side of his talent. That album is often overlooked, but it's a gem. Really shows Freddie's artistic soul.
And through all of this, he was still working with Queen. They released The Miracle in 1989 with hits like I Want It All and The Invisible Man.
Freddie's health was failing, but he never let up on his dedication to music. Those recordings are incredible.
His voice is just phenomenal on The Miracle. Knowing what he was going through at the time makes it even more powerful.
It's incredibly moving, and it was during those sessions for The Miracle that Freddie finally told his bandmates about his AIDS diagnosis.
It must have been such a difficult moment.
It was, but it also brought them even closer together. They faced that challenge as a family with love and support.
They knew they had limited time, and they were determined to make the most of it. They kept making music until Freddie was just too weak to continue.
Their final album together, Innuendo, came out in 1991, just months before Freddie died.
It's such a powerful album. Those songs, Innuendo, The Show Must Go On, they're all about strength, resilience, living life to the fullest.
They're incredibly moving, especially knowing the context. And Freddie's final vocal performance on Mother Love is just heartbreaking.
It is. He was so weak he could only record a few lines at a time, but his voice, it's just pure emotion, raw and vulnerable.
It's a haunting song, a beautiful farewell from one of the greatest voices music has ever known.
We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? From global superstardom to personal struggles, Freddie's battle with AIDS, and Queen's incredible resilience. It makes you realize just how much impact one band, one talented and complex frontman, can have on the world.
It really does. Queen's music continues to resonate with people of all ages all over the world, and their story is both inspiring and heartbreaking.
So before we get to those final chapters of Freddie's life and Queen's lasting impact, what's hitting you the most right now as we reflect on this part of their journey?
I'm struck by their resilience. They face so many obstacles, creatively, personally, professionally, but they never gave up on their vision.
Yeah, that's a good point. They were determined to do things their own way, even when it meant facing criticism or losing fans.
And in the final part of our deep dive, we'll see how that resilience ultimately led to their incredible and enduring legacy.
You know, it's hard to think about Queen's later work without thinking about what Freddie was going through personally. His health was fading, but on stage, it was like nothing could touch him.
I know, it's incredible, isn't it, the energy he had? And Freddie's decision to keep his AIDS diagnosis private, that says a lot about him.
He wanted to keep making music, keep living life on his own terms. He didn't want people's pity.
He really didn't. And his bandmates, they were amazing. They were like a shield around him, protecting his privacy, supporting him every step of the way.
A true family. And what gets me is that even as Freddie was getting sicker, his creative fire never dimmed. The Miracle, Innuendo, those albums are just bursting with emotion.
I think they knew they had limited time, a sense of urgency to create as much as they could while they still had Freddie.
The Show Must Go On is a perfect example. To sing like that, knowing what he was up against.
It gives me chills just thinking about it. Talk about strength, about defiance. But, you know, those last albums weren't just about saying goodbye. There's joy in there too, humor, a celebration of life.
It's true. Innuendo, for example, such a complex, epic track, musically adventurous.
Even facing his own mortality, Freddie never lost that spark. The wit, the passion for life.
It's inspiring right to the very end. He was pushing boundaries, experimenting.
And even after Freddie was gone, his presence was still felt. Made in Heaven, the album that came out in '95. It was finished by Brian, Roger, and John using Freddie's last recordings.
What a beautiful tribute, a testament to their bond, to the power of music.
It really is. Freddie's death, though, it had a profound impact on the world. It brought the AIDS crisis into the spotlight.
And it helped break down some of the stigma surrounding the disease.
Absolutely. And his legacy continues with the Mercury Phoenix Trust, the charity Brian, Roger, and John started. It's raised millions for AIDS research and awareness. Freddie's memory is still doing good in the world.
So after this deep dive into Queen's incredible journey, what sticks with you the most? What do you think we can all take away from their story?
Queen's story, to me, is a story about limitless creativity. It's about pushing the boundaries, taking risks, and staying true to your vision, even when things get tough.
Yeah, and it shows us that music, it can really unite us, inspire us, create a legacy that lives on.
Freddie once said, "I'm not going to be a star, I'm going to be a legend," and he definitely achieved that.
He did. But Queen's story also shows us that legends aren't just born. They're made through hard work, dedication, and a willingness to be different, to trust in your own unique vision.
And Freddie Mercury, a shy boy from Zanzibar, becoming one of the greatest rock icons of all time. If he can do it, imagine what's possible for the rest of us.
It's a powerful message. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey through the world of Queen and Bohemian Rhapsody.